I went into my Stardew Valley challenge about 2 months ago without much plan or preparation. I knew I wanted to make content for YouTube, and I wanted to do Let's Plays, but I didn't really have a clear path forward. After making a couple of videos that I ended up scraping on random games, I decided that I just needed to play something that I felt comfortable playing, and that I didn't have to put much thought into trying to make it into something entertaining. I had to come to the conclusion that if this was something that I was going to do, I had to do it in a way that would be enjoyable to me. If other people liked watching my content, that's the best case scenario. But otherwise, this is just a project to have creative fulfillment. Going in with the challenge from the start helped provide a path forward, while also giving me creative freedom to make changes as I saw fit. The only thing that I needed to follow is that I was playing Stardew Valley, and that I could only make money through ranching. From there, everything else could kind of happen naturally. After making a few videos, I did start looking into the game and diving deeper into the different mechanics and features that the game provided. I already did have a few hundred hours on the game even before starting this challenge, but I didn't really spend much time on a single farm. I would often restart after playing for a year because I would think of new ways I wanted to go about changing the initial playthrough loop. It was once I started doing research that I realized just how much more was in this game than I had ever known. Even just regarding animals, I rapidly learned that there was so much that I had never explored, and I was excited to bring that out into the playthrough. It was from this research that I had learned that there were dinosaurs in the game, and that you could keep them in a coop. From that moment, I knew I had a turning point in this playthrough. It still fits into the overall challenge that I'd given myself while also providing a bit more of a structured path forward. I wanted to get a dinosaur egg, and in order to do so, there were many steps that needed to occur to make that happen. From there, I followed these ideas to create videos and play through the first year. This video is going to summarize the events from the first year of the challenge. So obviously, the biggest challenge of this playthrough is figuring out how to expand while only generating income through animal products. This can be incredibly easy to do later in the game once you've made enough progress, but when you only start with 2 chicks, the beginning can go a bit slow. It is nice that with the Meadowlands farm, I was able to start with those free chicks, so I didn't have to worry about farming and earning income that way, and then not being able to sell crops after I buy the chickens. I think this was a good way to keep the challenge proper from the start. There wasn't really anything else to do except power through the slow start. I just spent every day taking care of the chickens and slowly made money from their eggs. Once I was able to get mayonnaise machines, I was able to generate higher income from there. Once I slowly made up enough money, I upgraded the coops so that I could have an incubator. From there, I was finally able to expand the population and generate exponential income. It was still pretty slow at that point. However, upgrading the coop allowed me to purchase ducks. This cost money to buy the first 2, but once I was able to start raising them, I quickly had another source of daily income. Finally, building the barn and allowing for cows, and eventually goats, was where things started to get a lot more efficient. It took a lot of initial work to take daily care of the animals, but once I had a proper assortment of animals that could reproduce on their own, I rapidly was able to make at least 5,000 gold a day. I still haven't been able to reproduce any cows or goats, but that's just a slow process that will eventually happen at random. I have future goals to build more barns so that I can separate the animals, and as there are more individual animals in each of the barns, there'll be higher chances of them reproducing. I did end up buying 3 cows and 3 goats, but that initial cost should be all that I need at this point. The barn was upgraded, allowing for them to breed, so eventually they'll be able to fill in the remaining population space. And then increase the amount of daily profit I get. The biggest cost came from the farm buildings themselves, from upgrading and building new coops and barns. The other major expense was completing the safe bundle in the community center. I'll explain this in a bit, but I needed the safe bundle completed to fix the bus that allows you to travel to the Calico Desert. Saving up the 42,500 gold that I needed definitely took a lot of time. I do finally have steady daily income, but there's still a lot of money to spend. My overall goal for this playthrough is to have a building for every single animal in the game. It's going to be a while before I get to some of the animals, but at least now, I would like to build another coop and 2 more barns. That's something I'll do over the next year of the playthrough. The next challenge that I had to navigate was figuring out how to increase my farming skill. I needed to increase my farming skill to get a lot of the crafting recipes for the animal products that would help me produce money the most efficiently. You do get experience points from taking care of your animals, but this would be a lot longer if that was the only way I was doing it. Because of this, I decided that I would plant produce for the purposes of energy, gifting, and just experience points in general. The produce that I didn't eat or gift, I just threw away. This felt a bit weird to do, but in the spirit of the challenge, I thought it was the best way to still get experience points while not storing a ton of useless produce. This meant that I was able to craft recipes as I attained them, as well as crafting items that became relevant as I obtained different animals. It was through gaining experience that I was able to make things like the cheese press and mayonnaise machine, both of which provide me most of my income. This generates way more income than just selling the eggs and milk themselves. Without this, the challenge would have been much slower, and I wouldn't be anywhere near as far as I am now on the farm. At this point, I'm on level 9 of the farming skill, so I won't be doing as much crop farming in the next year of the playthrough. I'll plant enough to finish up the community center bundles, but otherwise I don't think I'll be doing much more planning in this playthrough. I need to upgrade my house still, because then I'll be able to cook, but otherwise, I'm just using life elixirs and food in general, rather than worrying about cooking. The next challenge is less of an issue, and more just a task that needed ongoing completion. Since I knew that I wanted to get the dinosaur egg from the skull caverns instead of fishing, I needed to make sufficient process in the mines to have better combat skill progression, as well as hopefully having strong enough equipment that I'm not constantly struggling in the skull caverns. This kind of worked out, but I would still like to have a better sword at this point. I was able to do all that I wanted with the resources I have now, though. I do still struggle a lot with combat in this game. I've gotten a little bit better from practice just from this playthrough, but I still struggle a lot. Eating a ton of food has really been what saved me throughout my journeys. I only ended up dying a few times, but there were some pretty close calls, and times I left the mine earlier than I would have liked to due to incredibly low health. Mining is also necessary to obtain crafting resources. I'm not doing a ton of crafting on my farmland, but I do need enough resources to consistently build and upgrade new animal houses, as well as making the various artisan machines that will allow me to make products out of whatever I obtain from my animals. I spent a lot more time mining than I probably would have liked in a playthrough that is focused on ranching, but I think it's just such a core component of making progress in the game that I'm not really sure I could have done it much differently. I guess technically I could have done more fishing and relied more heavily on treasures, but that feels also inefficient and tedious. I think if I were to ever redo this challenge, I would try to get through the mines quicker so that it didn't have to be full-day adventures over the year. It's something I could get done more at once, and then only have to come back as resources are needed. I'm not really sure that that would even make much of a difference. Let me know if you have any suggestions on how to navigate through mine levels quickly, and any efficient ways to gain crafting ingredients. The last challenge I want to go over in this playthrough is that, honestly, I just have skill issues. If you caught any of my previous videos or shorts, you'll see that I really struggle with fighting in the game. I can never really seem to get used to the timing of my swings, as well as maneuvering around enemies so that I can dodge. I know that the fighting is pretty straightforward and consistent, but I just panic and make quick decisions without really thinking at the moment. The worst is when there's a group of enemies. All logic just leaves my brain. To navigate that, I mainly just tried to compensate for the skill issues by having a consistent supply of food on hand. The dried mushrooms are a really nice way to gain energy and health, as well as just making life elixirs. I chose mushrooms for my cave for this purpose, so that I could have a supply of food and health that didn't take much active effort from me. I also tried to upgrade my clothing I was wearing whenever I could so that I had higher stats and defense. I still don't have all that great of clothes, but I admittedly don't know how to improve that. I know I can make clothes with Emily's sewing machine, but I'm not sure if those give any buffs or not. It's something I'll have to look into as I continue the playthrough. I also tried to have the best swords I could at any time. I know that I don't do well with slow weapons, so I don't really like to use the club. I'm also just not great at aiming, so I never use the slingshot. That means I'm stuck using whatever sword I find or purchase. My sword is okay right now, but it's pretty rough in the skull caverns where the monsters have such high amounts of health. Next, I'll be discussing the milestones of the challenge so far in the first year. By the third video of this series, I was finally able to start making progress on expanding my animals. I made a silo and was able to upgrade to the big coop. With the big coop, I was able to start incubating my eggs. This allowed me to expand from just having the 2 chickens that were provided to me when the game started, due to selecting the Meadowlands farm. This also allowed me to purchase ducks in the future. I only needed to buy 2 ducks from Marnie and was able to use the incubator to continually breed more and increase the population. Eventually, I would build a second coop and separate out the ducks to their own space. Second major milestone I reached was purchasing my first barn. In the fourth video I made, I was able to purchase that first barn. This is what allowed me to purchase 2 cows in that 5th video then. It was my first pretty big financial purchase, so I considered this to be a pretty significant milestone. Having finally made enough initial progress, I would be finally reaching a turning point in increasing my daily profit. By the 6th video, I was able to upgrade my barn. This opened the door for potential breeding and having a free way to obtain more cows. I still haven't actually managed to reproduce any new cows, but the potential is still there. With the upgraded barn, I was also able to buy goats to have yet another type of animal product to produce income. In my 12th video, I was able to expand to the deluxe barn, which then allowed me to buy sheep. I was now able to obtain wool from the sheep, milk from the goats, and milk from the cows. All of these combined and then made into other products was a great way to increase my daily income. Once these animals finally start to reproduce, I'll be able to have a substantial amount of income from all of these animals and their products. That's why I'll eventually want a barn for each of them, so that I'll have 12 of the 3 species. But for now, I'm able to keep them all in the deluxe barn and don't really have to worry about running out of space. The 7th video of the playthrough actually had a ton of milestones hit. It was in this video that I was able to buy 2 goats, a duck, and a second coop. It was also in this video where I reached level 120 in the mines. Although it would still be a while before I was able to head over to the Skull Caverns, this was still a major step that needed to be finished, since without this, I couldn't get the Skull Key. At this level, I was able to obtain a stockpile of copper, silver, and gold. I needed it to upgrade my pickaxe a few times so that I could do a lot of the mining at once efficiently, so being able to just have these bars on hand was useful. They're also used in crafting recipes, so they're just really good to have on hand regardless. Since I was farming to get experience points, being able to get sprinklers was incredibly helpful. It allowed me to be able to focus on other things in the playthrough. It made this process a lot more passive. At this point, I only needed to grow the initial plants and harvest as necessary. Not having to water daily and waste time and energy was a huge help. After 10 videos of preparation, grueling combats in the mine, petting many farm animals, harvesting plants just to throw them in the trash, and fishing in hopes of a strong sword, I was finally ready to set out for adventure. With food, my sword, and pickaxe on my person, I set out to the Skull Caverns. I had gone here in previous playthroughs, so I knew it was a rough time. However, I was still surprised when I died within the first couple of minutes. I paid Harvey my 1,000 gold, went back to bed, and headed out again the next day. It took a few days, but I was surprised to find that I had managed to find a prehistoric level during that recording. The chance of getting one of these levels is about 2%, so I was genuinely excited to reach a level the first time I was trying. Unfortunately, the pepper dino that I slayed did not drop an egg upon death, so I had to continue trying. On my last day that I knew I was going to be recording, I headed down to the desert just one last time. Once again, I managed to get another prehistoric floor. There were more than just one pepper rex this time, so I had more chances for the egg to drop. 2 a.m. was rapidly approaching, and I knew I was overstaying my welcome. I just wanted to try and clear the floor before I went home. I played it incredibly risky since I knew I had a farm totem on my person. Then, as the struck 12:50 a.m., I slayed the last pepper rex on the floor. I obtained the dinosaur egg and immediately utilized the farm totem. Through my excitement, I ran to my bed and made it to sleep by 1:30 a.m. I couldn't believe my luck. I really didn't think I would get the egg the first time I tried, with the probability of finding the prehistoric floor so low. I was very grateful for my good fortune. I finished the video after saving for the night and continued off in the 12th video. I started incubating the dinosaur and continued the playthrough while it incubated for 11 days. I didn't return to the Skull Caverns after this, and I only went to the desert to get the specialty sandfish for the community center. By the 15th and final video I've completed so far, the dino egg finished incubating and finally hatched. I named it Reptar, after the dinosaur from the cartoon Rugrats. I have a few other names for future dinosaurs, but let me know if you have any recommendations. Now that the driving goal of getting a dinosaur has been completed, I found myself asking what's next for the playthrough. Obviously, the general concept is to obtain income through animal products, but what's the purpose? Why am I generating income? Well, I guess to be able to buy more animals to further the profit. But then we run into the same issue. What do I do with the increased income? What is the overall purpose of this playthrough? I have a friend that had recently fully completed Stardew Valley. I've never come close to 100%ing the game, and I didn't really ever think that I would have the patience to do so. However, it was at this point that I started thinking maybe that could be the purpose of this challenge. What if I 100% Stardew Valley as a goal of its own, but with the added challenge of only generating income through ranching, like I was doing anyways? Therefore, in the upcoming game year, I am going to be more aggressively paying attention to the seasons and availability of items so that I can focus on fully completing the community center, getting more fish, and working on just progressing the game overall. I still don't know if I'll actually have the patience to finish this challenge, but for now, this has provided me a clear path forward. I'm no longer aimlessly making money without any real drive aside from making money to make more money to then make more money quicker. I'm excited to see where this goes, and I'm excited to find out how far I can take this. If you've made it this far, and if you've watched any of my other content, I just want to say thank you. This has been a really great opportunity for me to work through some mental health issues I've been experiencing while giving myself a hobby that I've wanted to try for a while, but I was always so scared to try. I don't know that many people will watch this series or even this video, but what's important to me is that regardless of who sees it, I have a place for creative expression. However, if people do enjoy my content, that would be the best case scenario. I consume so much media on YouTube, and it provides me a sense of connection and community, as well as an escape from all that's going on in the world. If I can provide that for even one person, then that would make me happy. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Penguin Plays with a recap of the first year in my challenge of playing Stardew Valley while only generating income through animal products. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you next time.